Ready? Yay. Okay. Hey, everybody. It's Jennifer, and I'm here with another freaking awesome guest. Her name is Emily Wishall, and is that how you say your last name? Is it
Yeah, like Wishall.
Wishall?
Yeah, Wishall.
Okay. Because I'm like, you never know where to put the emphasis on the word. I was going to be smart and say emphasis on the wrong syllable. I can't remember. I don't remember. There was a movie where I can't even think of the actor right now, but some comedian says things funny like that. But anyway, so Miss Emily is amazing. And you guys know I like to keep things pretty just basic and comfortable and really casual here. So you can find all about her and all of the amazing like training and why she does what she does on our website. But let's just get to know her and let's see what she does and why she's passionate about what she does. I actually met her at a women's networking group and she was the speaker when I went, and it was so amazing because I loved how what I don't even remember your title, but it was something about grace or something about embodying, and it just totally, I felt like it was really similar to what mine was. And I was like, oh my God, I love when I find women that are kind of on the same path, that have the same alignment, that are talking the same thing and wanting to empower other women. So I know you've got all of the training and all of this stuff, but let's just get into the juicy stuff and let's tell people who you are and why you do what you do.
Yeah. So who am I? Yeah, we met. I remember, just to go back to that talk, it was embodied leadership. And
There you go.
I think a part that you took out that I was like, for whatever reason, probably because we were going to speak today in my meditation, we remembered it. We were talking about subconscious limiting belief patterns and what I call my healthy self-induced brainwashing.
There, oh, that's right. That's right. That was exactly what I loved. I was like, I knew there was one little juicy part that I loved so much out of the whole thing. I loved it.
This morning, I was like, oh, right. So I work with women who feel insecure, who feel ashamed in their body, who are holding on to some sort of pain, whether that's physical or emotional, and that's limiting the way that they're showing up in their life. So, I talk a lot about feminine leadership, and how does that differentiate from, a regular leadership role or what we might think of as a leader. And something that I find in almost every client that I work with is a lot of women are afraid to take on that leader role unless, maybe they are a CEO or in a more professional world, but say they're a stay-at-home mom or a healer or a coach, they might be like, well, who am I? I'm not a leader. But I don't think leadership is positional. I think it's more of how we show up in our daily lives. And I think for us as women to claim that role, no matter what our daily life looks like, is so powerful, to us, to how we feel, and really ultimately to those that we serve every day. So I really help women, cultivate a relationship with their body, so that they can feel more comfortable, feel more confident, not feel so anxious, and feel more powerful and, owning that leadership role, even if they are just a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
owning,
I love that. And I like how even if they're a stay-at-home mom,
yeah,
that to me is like one of the most powerful things ever. I've had a little bit of luxury of being able to do a little bit of all of it, right? Like I've been in the corporate America. I was a stay-at-home mom for a while, which the stay-at-home moms, like, it's funny when you're home, you actually are more busy than if you're at a job, which is so bizarre. Like you don't understand that. But even some friends that I have that are like in the retiree stage, they're like, how am I so busy? Like I wasn't even this busy when I was working. And I'm like, there's always so many things going on. But the one thing that I want to talk about, because you just brought this up, is feminine leadership. So how does that look different? Because there's a lot of stuff being thrown out there right now about feminine and masculine and how to integrate the two, and it gets really confusing and convoluted on what the difference is between feminine and masculine.
yeah. And, we have both, right? But for this would be specific for a female woman who identifies with the feminine gender and feels better when she's in her feminine. I think it's important for us to acknowledge, honor, and kind of learn, well, how do we lead in a feminine way? So, for example, you and I are business owners, and most of the time business is taught in a pretty masculine linear way, that I think that if we just follow, go, 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 and like you got to hustle and you just got to push, we're going to end up completely burnt out. It's not going to feel good. We'll lose our passion. We'll, just dry up. Where I think for us, if we really want to go about it in a more feminine way, for me, it's connecting with different power centers in my body and coming there first, which just seems to slow things down. And connecting with more my inner guidance and allowing more space for creativity, allowing more space for fluidity in my day. And that doesn't mean procrastination. It doesn't mean I'm not doing anything. It just means that I don't, some days I do have a more rigid schedule, but I try to have space and fluctuation in my schedule to allow for more creativity, to allow more time in nature, to allow, certain times of the months where I'm out of my cycle, planning ahead if I can of, I might need a rest day here, or I might have more energy at this point in time. So kind of scheduling around my own menstrual cycle. And yeah, I think that for us women, I think really connecting with our bodies, because so many of us, we've disconnected from it because it's not safe to be in our body because of trauma, because we're ashamed of our body, X, Y, and Z, whatever reason. And when that happens, and when we're just operating from a really mental headspace standpoint of to-do list, and I gotta go, I'm busy, and all of this, we lose our power, and we just kind of disconnect from our own femininity.
Yeah. No, I love how you talk about that. First of all, I think it's awesome that you bring that up, that as women, there are certain times of the month where we've got to nurture ourselves a little bit more. There are cycles that we go through there. We have to be in that space. And I feel like a lot of it too, is it's always so you don't talk about it. You know what I mean? Whereas I think back in the tribal days, everybody knew because there was a special tent. You know what I mean? You went to go. So everybody knew what was going on. It wasn't so taboo. It was just a part of the life, a part of the cycle, like you're saying. And I love that you bring that up, because I feel like that's important, because that's one thing that usually isn't even ever, I don't even know if I've ever had anybody that I've talked to that brings that up. So that's a really, really, I think, important thing of honoring our body and being in our body.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes we're like, well, I don't have the time to do that, or I don't have the, that sounds nice, but I don't have the time to have fluid creativity time, or whatever that may mean. But what I found for myself and several of the clients I work with, I actually get more done by allowing that, because then the time I am focusing on a task, I'm just focused there, or I know that I have the reserve and the energy to give it my attention. So it doesn't take 2 to 3 times as long as it may otherwise. So there is time. Time is a very,
Well, and it's so talking about being in the flow, I'm kind of gonna go a little bit more on the woo-woo side with this, but for me, the one thing that I teach my clients, and especially in my membership group, we talk about it a little bit more than just the regular clients that I deal with, but I always tell them, be in the flow enough that you're literally not only with your own body and your own to-do list, but bring in the divine and say, what next? And so I laugh and I say, even if you have a to-do list that's 10 items long, don't go about it from top to bottom. Go about it with, okay, where, what feels good right now? What should I do next? And ask for guidance. And sometimes it's, something 3 down on the list, but you get that done. And if you go in the flow of okay, I know these are the things I need to get done today, but if you allow yourself to be in the flow and ask the divine, what next? Which one next? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to take a nap. Sometimes that's what it is a 15-minute nap.
Exactly. Yeah. I took a nap yesterday.
Yeah.
I took a nap. A friend of mine, she calls it, instead of the to-do list, the to-be list, which I love.
Oh, good.
And it in talking about, levels of consciousness. And if you are feeling really resistant to a task, that might not be the time to do it, because, where are you coming from energetically, feeling state? So I agree, mixing up the order, checking in, and maybe you do need a little nap. Maybe you need to just be in the sun for 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
It doesn't be a long thing.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I think that's right too. Being in the flow like that and trusting, for me, I remember years ago, I would have been mortified to even think about taking a nap. I would have felt I don't have time. There's too much going on. What a waste, those kind of things. But now I see the power of that, of being in that space and knowing that, maybe you just need that 5 minutes, like you said, in the sunshine, and then you'll get then you can get 5 things off your to-do list because you allowed yourself that 5 minutes.
Totally. You recharge. Your tank isn't depleted.
Yeah.
And maybe a hit of inspiration of how to do it in a whatever the next more succinct way or effective way.
No, absolutely. I love that. So, speaking of that, that kind of brings me into, I know I've heard you speak about alignment, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like what we're talking about right now really kind of makes sense with that. So tell me, when you think of alignment, what does that mean to you, and how do you help your clients with that?
Yeah. So alignment, I often think of, there's this quote from Gandhi, and he's defining integrity, but I love it because it goes with alignment. He's saying, when what you think, what you say, and what you do are all in alignment.
Oh,
And for me, I feel like that is such a beautiful thing to just keep in the background of of my mind, of people I work with, people I'm around. So I work with my clients with alignment in a variety of ways, because I do both hands-on, very structural work. So very much from a physical standpoint of how do we help our physical body come back into natural alignment, to then also, what could be more in the energetic, emotional realm of, well, let's looking at, what are your core values? How are you prioritizing your time? And is that in alignment, with those core values and what you're thinking, what you're saying? What I find is when we can learn to, connect into our body, that really, really just quickens the path of coming into alignment. So it's essential to have some sort of practice, whatever it is, on a regular, daily, consistent basis. I'm a big fan of first thing in the morning or right before bed, just because of the way that the brain waves are working and the subconscious mind. But of some practice of either, a body-centered practice, a meditation, to help quiet our monkey mind, right? To help quiet this mind and help, what is going on in here? What does it feel like in here? What sensation is present? Say for example, this might be a more practical example of alignment. You're in conflict with somebody else. Maybe it's your partner and you're in an argument. And it's easy to go many different routes that are going to ignore whatever sensation is present. Route might be one, yelling at them. Two, just trying to frou and spiritually bypass it in your mind. Be like, oh, it's all okay. Everything, it's fine. It's just this one time. But if you actually take a moment to pause and step back, and we'll be like, whew, what does that actually feel like in my body? And if, oh, it's okay, everything's fine, actually feels integrated into the rest of your core, then that would be an okay choice. But more often than not, there's probably some sort of physical sensation. And if we can give ourselves the space to just feel it without attaching it to story and let it release, it's so powerful. And I realize I'm going a little bit more than just an alignment here, but I feel like that is living in alignment. It's acknowledging what is present and allowing it through us without resisting it, which, sometimes is easier said than done than others, because it can be scary and there's a lot of unknown. But really taking ultimately a seat in your life where you desire to be aligned, to have what you say, what you think, what you do be in that integrity alignment. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and I think what you're talking about there, like, it's important to talk about, because there's so many people who don't feel their feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who are afraid of their feelings. Or the one thing in the spiritual community I hear all the time was, well, detach. Well, okay, detach doesn't mean you can't, like, a lot of times they're like, oh, just detach from it, let it go. But if you don't deal with it, it stays in your body.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand that. Like, I know there's a lot of empaths that are like in my community Facebook group and stuff, and they're like, I don't understand why. And I'm like, well, you're feeling other people's emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think that learning how to feel our own emotions in our own self, and you do feel it in your body. Like, and you think of all the little cliche things that we say, like shake it off, and ooh, that hit my gut. You know what I mean? Like things like that, like those old little tiny sayings that seem so insignificant. There's huge insight in
Oh,
those.
totally. And what's beautiful, I think, is the science is catching up. The
Mm-hmm.
neuroscience and the body mind connection. And one of the books I'm reading right now is The Body Keeps Score, which is written by an MD. And it really is showing how trauma, even little small pieces, how it's stored in our body as tension. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big follower of Dr. Joe Dispenza. And, a lot of what his research is doing is showing that mind body connection, and the power of why our thoughts really matter, and the power of, we can't just disassociate from feelings. And what that looks like from a very scientific level. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
just woo woo out there. It's
Right,
now,
right.
the science is kind of catching up to some of the more conscious spirituality teachings, which
Mm-hmm.
I think is amazing.
So I kind of want to back up, and I know I don't even know if this is something we had talked about talking about, but I like how you said coming into your body, and I know that's one thing that a lot of people. So I remember really there was when I first started really stepping out into the psychic world, right, with all of these people around me, and they're like, you just got to get grounded. And I'm like, what do you even mean? You know what I mean? And it was so funny because my husband used to tease me, and he'd be like, hello, like, where are you at? Are you in your own little world again? And I'd be like, oh yeah, hold on, let me come back. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And people would say, well, you got to come back into your body. And I'm like, but I like it up here. It's more fun. It's more fun up there. So it took me
Yeah.
a while to understand, first of all, what that even means. And then second of
Yeah.
all, how to do it and why
Right.
it's important.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like your take. How do you talk about that?
So I'm happy if you want, we can just do a little practice, and that then people, when they're watching this, if they want to go through it on their own,
Sure.
usually because it is an interesting, because, I'll ask people to sometimes drop into their body, or I talk a lot about embodiment, and a question I get more often on is, well, how do I do that? What does that
Hmm.
actually mean?
Right.
And so let's see how we'll do this in this standpoint. Normally I'll have people, we do this in a partner exercise. So we'll just play, we'll
Okay,
figure.
what's some partners?
But I guess I'll just demonstrate it, and then people can
Okay.
go on. So I talk a lot about, with the women work that I do, coming into womb space.
Okay.
So our womb space, even if a woman no longer physically has it, even just that energetic space, is about 3 inches below the navel and back and towards the spine. So it really is like the center of the pelvic bowl. And if you look at a lot of, it's a important place, power center, where the physical body and the energetic body merge together. If you look a lot of different ancient teachings like martial arts, yoga, this is a major power center. And for us women, it happens to exist in our womb space. So that is my go-to. That's like what I call coming home. And I will often check in, am I home? Am I home? So I will demonstrate what it's like to be in headspace, and I'll just share whatever comes to mind about what I do. I'll give you my commercial pitch,
Sure.
and then I'll drop into my womb space and just give you a little experience of how that feels different.
Okay.
So most of us, most of the time, are not present. We are lost in thought. We're either worried about the past, the future, our to-do list, whatever it is. So I'm going to come into my headspace, and I'll share about what I do, and then I'll drop into womb space and say the same thing. And we'll just then talk about if there was a noticeable difference or not. So let me just. All right. So I am Emily Wishall, and I work with women who feel insecure, feel ashamed in their body, and are just desiring to give back more, but feel like they're stuck in some way. That was me in headspace. So now I'm just going to drop into my womb space. And if somebody is wanting to, explore this on their own, I would recommend having both feet on the floor. You can close your eyes. You can place your hand on your lower abdomen just to help. I think having that external touch can help. You bring your attention, bring your energy down. So you're going to bring your attention about 3 inches below your navel, back towards your spine. So really the center point of the bowl of your pelvis. And just feel that anchor point. And I think that there's, a lot of time we often will feel scattered. There's, where we feel like we're just emotionally on this ride based on external events. And for me, I feel like this is an amazing center of how can we be still? How can we be the calm as all this craziness might be going on around us? So I'll connect to my womb space. And I'll share again what I do. So I'm Emily Wishall, and I work with women who feel insecure, feel ashamed in their body, or are holding on to emotional or physical pain. And what I do is I help them actually learn how to embody this vehicle, our physical body, first. and how can they feel safe there? How can they feel in charge there? How can they feel present there? And what I find is when we can start to cultivate a deeper relationship here, those limiting beliefs of I'm not enough, the pain, everything, it just falls away with much greater ease, and they find their confidence and they find their voice. So there's a little example.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice a difference between the two?
I did. It seemed well, it was even your voice had a higher pitch, and it seemed a little more flighty, which not that that's what you're portraying, but like it just energetically to me, that's what it felt like. You could feel the energy kind of swirling up here.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of us live, right? Because we are in the to-do list and we are running after the kids, and we're trying to hurry and get to work on time, and we're doing all of these things that we're doing, we do usually from up here.
Yes.
So I feel like it is good to take time to bring yourself back in. But I feel like, and I love that you did the example, because I feel like it's important for people to just kind of play around with it within themselves and find out where are they operating from. You know, like, are you really here paying attention, or are you just running on autopilot? Right.
Yeah. And starting to notice, I think the comparison and contrast is important because it gives a distinction for like, whoa, how different it can feel. And it's not like you're 100% always in the head or 100% in your body. There's an interplay. But that's when I mentioned earlier having that consistent daily practice. Because when you're sitting in your room in the quiet morning, it's a lot easier to kind of connect with your body than when life stressors come.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find when I do this with women, in person, and they'll partner up, is often the feedback I get is, one, women remember more what their partner said when they're in their womb space, when they're in their body. There's a lot more emotion usually. Usually the women feel more connected. Sometimes there might even be tears. What they say, because I'll either have them share, their commercial of what they do, or even just what they did that day. And I find in the headspace, it's more of a just listing off, just kind of, oh, I do this. When you connect in, and there's more of a sense of gratitude, of appreciation. There's even more color texture present, which is fascinating. And what I love is I think we live in a time where more of us feel more disconnected than ever before. Mm-hmm. But this is such a simple thing that brings so much deeper connection, like that quick.
Right.
No,
I like that. And I was actually kind of cheating and looking at my notes, because I'm like, I feel like this leads into another question that I had.
Yeah.
And it is, when we're talking about this, I know it. And again, I know I've heard you speak a couple times, and it says, the one thing I wanted to ask is, why do you believe that we have more confidence and clarity when we're connected? Because I know you hear people talk about this all the time, but I want to know, what do you think, and how do you bring in that confidence?
I think a big piece has been my own story and my own, So, my own practice with this, and which is why now it's like what I teach and what I want to share with everyone. So most of my life, which isn't uncommon for a lot of women, operated from the I'm not enough voice. Mm-hmm. And I think I felt fat from like age 8, which is super young. But that just perpetuated that, like, I'm not enough until like I'm skinny enough, like I don't deserve a boyfriend until I'm skinny enough, or I don't deserve to wear that article of clothing that I love because I'm not skinny enough, or whatever it may be. That then perpetuated more into, some anxiety of going into group situations where I didn't know many people. Well, it's just easier to just go shut myself off in my room and just like eat cookies and watch Netflix. And I was completely disconnected from my body. I would numb down my feelings. That was what I was trained, because I didn't want to feel, I was taught that like crying might mean that you're feeling sorry for yourself. There's no space for that. So just numb down the feelings, and, just wanted to kind of just walked around in this way of like pretending. And people would ask how I was, and it's like, I'm good. Everything's fine. It's fine. I'm good. Right. And even if that's not how I felt at all, and even if it wasn't just a, acquaintance asking that question, they say it was like my mom or a dear friend who really want to know how, I would pretend that like everything's fine. And for me, it was many different things that led to a big shift. One was, so I'm a certified Rolfer, which is a form of holistic body work, and going through what's called the 10 series, which is just 10 different sessions that work through the body. And I won't go too much into that, but about halfway through that series, I was out on a walk one evening and realized, wow, it's so easy to walk. What's going on? And then I did a check and realized, wow, I'm standing totally up straight. The next second, I just had an overwhelming amount of emotion come over me, because that was the first time I realized in my physical body how I was pretending, how I was not in alignment, how I was not in integrity, by having that like really rigid, good posture, right? And like sucking in my stomach. And that was my shell, that was my armoring to project out into the world that I was some way that I thought would win their approval. That was not true to how I felt on the inside, which of course then leads to feeling more insecure, more shame. The second piece is, so I'm a teacher of what's called the art of feminine presence. And learning that work has completely shifted my life. So I learned about 2 years ago and went through my first 3-day weekend intensive. And, you know, I'm a body worker, so I thought I was pretty connected to my body, but realized just how much there's just more and more and more layers, right? We can always go deeper. And what I experienced was, you know, I'm a fairly young business owner. I am a part of my personality is that I'm very sweet, but with that, I wasn't often taken seriously. And what I found is when I would go into networking events, I wasn't leaving as exhausted as I used to, but also I didn't feel like I had to project out like everything's perfect, like I got it all together in my business. I was just showing up however I was.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was more integrated with, you know, the dark and the light, which, you know, it's an ongoing journey.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I found that people would come up to me more. They would be more curious about what I was doing. They'd want to work with me. They'd have somebody refer to me. They were just taking me more seriously. And I didn't feel, what I really, really experienced was that I'm not enough voice doesn't exist when I am here, when I am home, when I'm anchored in the present moment. Those little they're just not there. Mm-hmm. And that to me is fascinating. It's so powerful.
I love that. It's so funny because when you were talking about that, I thought, I have a girlfriend and her and I every once in a while will just do some random like Facebook Live or whatever. And we did one day called Embrace the Suck, because I feel like that needs to be talked about, that sometimes life gets hard. Sometimes things just suck. I mean, sometimes it just happens. You know what I mean? Like stuff happens. And so it's not I think there's so much of this persona, and especially social media. I'm so grateful this crap wasn't around when I was in high school. I'm a lot older than you are, but I'm so grateful that stuff wasn't there, because I'm like, there's no room to be human, right? And the thing is, people only put the stuff they want you to see. It's just like TV, you know what I mean? Reality TV, they don't show you everything. They only show you the stuff they want you to see. Right? So we kind of tend to project that out, thinking that we need to be this way or that way or whatever, instead of just being who you are. And what you were talking about with that too, like not feeling good enough or whatever. I can't tell you how many women I talk to and they feel like a fraud. And I'm like, dude, I've been there. There are days where I feel like it's like, who am I to be talking about this? Who am I to write this stupid book? Like, because so it's not a thing that most, every woman that I know that's truthful has dealt with that in some point or time or day in her life. Right. So don't feel like there's no room for that, because I think when you can actually embrace that part too, and know that that's part of life and who you are, that's where you really get to start living in authenticity and start living in alignment and start really
women and support in your life that you can call on those days.
Right.
Like, hey, I'm about to do this thing, or this is how I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. Because we really need support and community, especially as we need our tribe and a space where you can share that and they don't even need to do anything, just hear you and listen. That wow, like I get that. I've been there.
Yeah. And I think it's an important thing too. And I'm not trying to get off topic, so I hope I didn't do that, but I feel like it is about knowing that it's okay to have all of that light and dark, like you said. You know, it's all there, and it's all what it is, and it's all part of life, and it's just about how you can deal with it and respond to it. Right. And like you're talking about, when you're up here, it's harder to respond from a place that's solid and grounded and can transform it. Whereas when you're in your body and you can feel it, then I feel like you can then, instead of just reacting to the situation, you can actually respond and say, okay, what's really going on? How am I really feeling? And how can I change this? How can I make this different? You know what I mean? It's not even sometimes about making it better, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
even want to use that word. Sometimes it's just about making it different, you know,
And
and knowing that,
it,
I'm sorry, say that again.
creating space to acknowledge it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Because
Yes.
we're all human.
Right.
And that's the part I've been thinking a lot about, like the human experience and how much we forget, you know, as human, we're not supposed to be perfect and put together, right?
Right.
Like we're just humans living our lives, right? And that involves some really low hard points, some even maybe just mediocre times where you're just kind of tired on a Wednesday afternoon, right? You're
Mhm.
just kind of ho hum,
Yeah.
and some really amazing, joyful, awesome experiences. But if we want the heightened state with that, we've got to accept those dark.
Right. And
Yeah.
know that it's not like you're not a failure if you feel that or if you go there, because I think that's where a lot of the women feeling like they're a fraud comes from, is because there's this unattainable standard that isn't realistic. You know what I mean? So, and that's going to bring me, because another thing I heard you talk about before is physical presence.
Mm-hmm.
And you say it's the number one thing that attracts people to you and makes them listen. But
Mm-hmm.
what's really powerful, and what I want you to kind of expand on a little bit more, is how you were saying, well, if I'm skinny enough, or, you know, those kind of things. And I'm in that space right now because my hormones, I'm going through some weird changes and stuff, and I'm heavier than I've ever been. But there are days where I'm like, I can't even believe this is who I am. And there are days I feel fine. So I
Yeah.
think even that can fluctuate. The thing is, again, embracing what it is and where you're at. Like, I know in myself, I've come to a place where this is just what it is. This is just the phase of life I'm at, and it's okay. You know what I mean? But I know that there's a lot of places. I remember being so skinny and feeling like I was fat. Like, and I was skinny. You know what I mean? And I'm like, dude, I never thought this was gonna happen. You know what I mean? But what's funny is I actually feel more confident and more, well, like we're talking about the confidence and the clarity. I feel that more now than I did back then.
That's
And back
beautiful.
then I was skinny. You know what I mean? So it's more about, I guess what I want you to expand on is how it's not even about your physical like size or pounds or whatever it is you want to do, or even like I'm all about the fake lashes, right? Like, and everybody knows they're fake, but I don't care because I like them. Do you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Oh,
Because they make me feel good, right?
yeah.
They make me feel good. I like them. It's fun. I like the earrings. I like the jewelry, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So, but it's not about that as much as how you feel inside and how that is what projects. So,
Exactly.
so explain to me, when you say your physical presence is the number one most important thing that attracts people to you and makes them listen, how do you interpret that?
Yeah. So first of all, I love that what you share, that you're feeling more confident and that you can just come from your body, no matter what. Even though you said many years ago you were super skinny, but
Oh,
then it felt,
yeah.
because that
Yeah.
is such that's kind of just like the key to it is, so earlier, you know, go into the practice of like, what does it mean to be in our body? And you know, I think we can all think of, and maybe we've been in this scenario where a woman walks into a room, or we walked into a room, we feel like everybody's looking at us. Like we grab everyone's attention in a positive way, or where we've walked into a room and we feel completely invisible. And it doesn't have to do with so much, you know, what you're looking like on the outside. It has more of, yeah, how you are feeling in your body. And sometimes I'd like to play with, I'll ask like myself the curious question of, what would it be like if I could inhabit every single cell of my body? Like, ooh, what would that be like? And, you know, just playing with feeling that inner, inside, physical and energetic sensation that is always there if we allow ourselves to feel it. So it's like a kind of tingly, vibrating sense. And it's almost like you can get your joy and pleasure from the inside. And what that actually does is it lights you up. It makes you more radiant. And with time, I think you can cultivate that more and more. And I noticed myself, like there are different things I can do that I really feel that, like, woof, there's my light globe that it turned on, and I feel really bright and big. And I also really believe why physical presence is so important is because, so say for example, you're going, we'll use the networking event as an example, and you're walking in and you're wanting to project out, to everyone, like everything's perfect in my business, or like I've got it all together, or I'm so friendly, or whatever it may be. If it's coming from here, if it's coming from a more mental standpoint of a projection of a way that you think people need to see you so that they will approve of you, that is actually going to be creating some repel and making you smaller, more invisible, or people would just kind of get a weird read from you because it's not aligned. As opposed to if you can, maybe before you go into that event, take a few minutes and sit in your car to recenter yourself, to just really, let go of any need to be a certain way, look a certain way, and just come into your body and feel that internal sensation, to feel what's present for you, and then walk into the room without needing to prove anything. People get a very different read on you because you don't have any little weird lurking need to get something from them. You are already complete and whole in yourself. And yeah, it may sound, kind of, well, I don't know, talking about it, but it's actually very distinct and palpable to most people, even if they aren't that aware of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it just comes back into really being who you are and being able to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I feel like it's really important, the work that you do. We're kind of running over a little bit on time. I hope that's okay with you, but I just want to get kind of an overall, give us kind of a good little wrap up before we leave about, just a little bit more about the work you do and how people can find you. Obviously I'll have links included underneath the video as well, but just give us a quick little overview.
Yeah. So I work with people both in person and on the phone. I do the hands-on rolfing work. I do what I call mind body coaching. It's much more somatic based, where, I'm curious what your goals are. I'm curious what you desire in your life. But what I'm more fascinated by and will always start with is, what is your relationship like with your body? And where do you exist attention wise mostly throughout your day? Because I've just found in my own personal experience and with the clients I work with, the working with limiting beliefs, working with achieving goals, it happens so much faster if we can, let's come into our body first, as opposed to just writing it down. Let's just bring it more into the mental. So my website is wishallwellness.com, WISHALL wellness. It's a compound word. And I think what I would love to leave people is just for the rest of today, whatever time you're watching this, see if you can check in 10 times just to where your attention is. Well, or more, if you find yourself wanting to scroll through your social media news feed, just for the rest of today, don't do that. And instead, step outside in the sun, just take a pause where you are, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, however long you were going to scroll through. Because whenever we scroll through too, it just is just another mental game of judgment, of comparison, of disconnection from our body.
That's what I was just going to say, detaching from and disconnection. I love that you said disconnection. That's exactly what I was feeling it.
Yeah. And instead use that 5, 10 seconds, 5 minutes, however long it would have been, to just get curious about, say you're sitting down, like, how does my butt feel sitting in the chair? How do my feet feel on the floor? What does it mean to inhabit every single cell of my body? And maybe you have no reference for that and it makes no sense to you, but just creating a small little sliver of time in your day to invite in those questions and invite in that curiosity, to just begin to see if there's a new way of being. And and having patience, just patience for the process, patience for where you're at. We're all on our own journey in life, and we're all humans at the end of the day, right? And just having patience for where you're at and acceptance, and creating small slivers at a time. It doesn't have to be an hour-long practice in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
But just small little spaces at a red light, instead of getting lost in thought, come back to physical sensation, rub your hands on the steering wheel, little subtle things like that to bring you back into your body.
I love that. One thing that I always have people do is like actually put their hands on their stomach and just like breathe from your diaphragm. I think we've lost that too. So I think just little things like that. And I love the curiosity thing. That's one of my favorite things to do with clients, is just be like, I wonder what, I wonder if, I wonder what,
Yeah.
What about that?
It's so interesting. It's all like a fun little experiment. It doesn't have to be so serious.
Yeah. And then it makes things not so hard I think sometimes just that simplicity of it makes things so much easier to just process and deal with and actually come back into being in the moment, right? That's another big thing that's talked about. So anyway, I love everything you said. Thank you so much for being a guest with me today. I love the work you do. Obviously, I was so excited how and it makes like I literally get excited and bursting at the seams when I find other women doing similar work. And so thank you for doing what you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here today and for the work you do. And this was fun.
Yeah, it is really fun. I love it. So, all right. Well, I will get this up to everybody. If you guys have any questions, I'll have her website and everything underneath the video. You can connect with her there and just ask questions. So I love that. I think we should leave that with, I wonder.
Yeah, let's just have a little bit of like fun, curious, wonder for the rest of the day.
I wonder what life could be like if I could learn to be in my body more.
Yeah, what might shift.
Right? Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks again so much for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, everyone.